My one real adventure. It took me many years to put this story down. I had to wait for my father to pass on before I could make it public. At age 60, I'm still afraid of my father's disapproval. During my 14th year, my dad was a successful automobile dealer in a small town in southeastern Utah. The social event of our year was watching the unveiling of the new Dodges and Plymouths on the Lawrence Welk Show. It seemed like the whole town paraded through my father's showroom the day the new models rolled off the Detroit semi-trailers. My father's Dodge dealership was located a 6-minute bike ride from my home. This convenience allowed me to ride my bike to Bunnell's Garage, as we called it then, every weekday morning before school. Here at the garage, I performed various custodial tasks such as dusting the cars, sweeping the floor, and filling the pop machine. On Thursday mornings, Calvin Jackson, an 8th grade associate with an early morning paper, stopped by the garage with a 6-pack of Twinkies that he had pilfered from the hostess bread truck that lay on his early morning paper route path. The memory of a stolen Twinkie mixed with the taste of orange pop from my dad's machine still waxes nostalgically in my memory. Calvin was not a dreamer like me. Calvin was a man of action. He had gone far beyond the morning Twinkie raid. He had swiped copies of True Confession magazines from Manotti's drugstore. I could never hope to live up to Calvin's reputation. Besides, without Calvin, I doubt I would have anything other than fantasies to hide from my father. I was surprised that year when Calvin took notice of me. I originally thought my social status as the student body president of the junior high school afforded him some type of in with the fair sex. But he was not impressed by my political position. I realized later that he didn't need me to be popular with the women. He had a silk tongue and lips of honey. I provided him with a much more interesting asset. One early Thursday morning, after my senses had been dulled with Twinkies and orange pop, Calvin finally got to his proposal. "Buns," he said, "I bet you and I could really impress a couple of girls if we picked them up for the Sadie Hawkins dance with a set of wheels." Now, he had to spell it out for me before I got past the vision of riding double with a girl on my bicycle. "Can you imagine," he continued, "how charged girls would be if they picked them up in one of your dad's used cars?" One thing I could do was imagine, especially with Calvin spelling it out. "Picture this," he says. "We'll sneak down here about 8 o'clock at night, stash our bikes, grab a car and pick up the chicks. After the dance, we'll bring it back and no one will ever suspect." Well, after Calvin planted the idea, it didn't take long for it to take root. I was itching to drive. Although 2 years away from a license, growing up around cars had given me plenty of opportunities to learn the skill. I knew I could do it. One of my Saturday responsibilities since age 12 was putting all of the used cars in a straight line, making sure they were facing the street. You bet I could drive. I'd been driving for years, and here was my chance to be in on a first-hand adventure with a man of action himself. The key to the front door of the garage gave me access to a boy's dream, a large wooden board which pegged the keys of 18 used cars. Now, in 1959, cars were built the way God intended. They were made in America, with fins and strong square lines. They had large capacity V8 engines and speedometers calibrated up to 140 miles an hour. And in those days, fuel was less than 20 cents a gallon. So using lots of gas to go a little distance very quickly was socially acceptable, even to the middle class. From the vantage point of our bicycle seats, my mentor and I carefully made our selection. The unanimous pick was a 1953 Mercury two-door sedan. The back fins were horizontal and rounded, giving it a softer look than the larger fins found on the 56 and 57 models. The body color was a single soft burgundy violet, the perfect color for the perfect car, for the perfect crime. The juveniles of the day had a social stigma attached to two-colored automobiles. I don't understand the reason for the taboo other than two tones seem to be preferred by adults. The upholstery in our Mercury sported rolled and tucked white and black Naugahyde. The transmission was a 3-speed straight stick attached to the steering column. A 2-pound chrome ball was bolted to the end of the shift lever, which gave the driver a feeling of power and elegance whenever the ball was stroked. And the weight of that ball could drop that car into second gear without the use of hands. A quick depression of the clutch pedal was all that was required. And the anticipation of the crime provided an excitement that was almost addicting. On the night of the adventure, we rode our bikes the 6 blocks to the garage and stashed them between the camp trailer that served as the office on Bunnell's used car lot and Eli Broadburn's grocery store. Calvin noted that it was particularly ironic that we used Broadburn's store as cover for the crime because Dennis Broadburn, the crab class nerd, wouldn't be caught dead having an adventure such as ours. It didn't occur to me at the time, but if we'd have been found out, that's the way we'd have been caught too, dead. But when that 53 Merc engine came to life and I lowered that 2-pound ball into first gear, my imagination was on to other things. My parents were out of town for the weekend. I planned to spend the night sleeping over at Calvin's house. Calvin was right about the girls being impressed. Being chauffeured to a junior high dance by 2 guys with their own car was Dear Diary material. We parked the purple Merc and walked our dates the last half block to the dance. It was obvious to Calvin and me that we were trying to avoid detection. But somehow the girls perceived the gesture as romantic. Even after the dance, we achieved speeds in excess of 90 miles per hour and burned rubber in 3 gears. These young ladies didn't seem to comprehend that they were participating in a crime, or even a more logical concern that their lives were in great jeopardy in the hands of 2 fellows such as us. Youth, then as now, seemed to have the feeling of immortality. That night we had the world by the tail. We didn't conceive that anything could go wrong. Later that night, down in Calvin's basement, we felt as if we had conquered the world.